Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 4 of the Tour de France, brought to you by Ketone Aid. If you're looking to save 15% off your next order of Ketone Aid, use the code BUTTERFLY. Now let's get into today's stage 4 of the Tour de France. 140 kilometers, 3 mountain passage. The Col de Galibier is the final one, but it'll summit with 19 kilometers to go, and then it's a twisty, technical, wet descent, so it's going to be a hair raiser that the riders have to get all the way through the descent in order to finish today's race. That means Tadej Pogačar, if he puts on a show on the final climb, you're going to be chasing the Slovenian all the way down the descent, unless Jonas Vingegaard has some amazing legs. Now, Remco Evenepoel, we saw on stage 2, he has some good legs. Primoz Roglic is questionable after stage 2, showing where he lost about 20 seconds to the other Slovenian, Tadej Pogačar, Remco Evenepoel, and Jonas Vingegaard. Now, I want to take you into the writers' meeting of how I would have done it if I'm UAE Team Emirates and if I'm EF Education, and a quick way to show it if I'm one of the teams maybe thinking today's a breakaway. Well, UAE Team members have Tadej Pogačar, which I said. He's the outright favorite here at the Tour de France because he won the Giro d'Italia and he's won everything this year. But UAE Team members have a dilemma. Do they want to win the stage? Do they want to win general classification and try to put distance between himself and Jonas Vingegaard? Of course they do, but can they do it? So if I'm the director sportif, I'm looking at Tadej Pogačar, and I'm giving you a few different scenarios. If you're not feeling good, let the break go. Don't worry about it. We'll come back on another day and try to beat Jonas Vingegaard somewhere else. If you're feeling good but maybe not fantastic, you want to go over the Col de Galibier with 2-3 teammates because he's got marvelous climbers with Adam Yates. He's got Almeida on there, he's got Ayuso on there, Sivakov on there, they're all climbers. So you can control the Galibier all the way up over the top, catching the break, bring it down the descent, and maybe Tadej Pogačar just sprints for time bonuses. That's a possibility. If he's feeling fantastic, you want to drill it up the Col de Galibier. You want to have guys blowing out all over the place. You want to blow your teammates off the front one at a time with Ayuso blowing, with Sivakov blowing, with Almeida blowing, and then Adam Yates, the last guy, drilling it into the climb until he blows. And then, if you're Tadej Pogačar, you want to light everyone up and hopefully drop Jonas Vingegaard, Primoz Roglic, and Remco Evenepoel. That's the way I would play it. You have 3 different scenarios, and Tadej Pogačar has to make the decision on the road how his legs are going. Now, if you're EF Education, you're Richard Carapaz in the race leader's yellow jersey, you want to go in today's race, and if you see that UAE team members are willing to ride for the stage win and general classification, I don't even put a guy on the front, but if you want to, you put one on the front. That's a good way to do it. If you're any other team than those 2, and you're guys that are trying to race to win the stage, because we saw stage 1 and we saw stage 2 go all the way to the line with breakaway specialists, well, you picked the wrong day to do it because, like I said, Carapaz is wearing the race leader's yellow jersey. He won the Giro d'Italia in 2019. He gave Jai Hindley a good run for the money when Jai Hindley won the Giro, where he finished 2nd overall. So we know Carapaz is a good climber. So if you can't climb better than Richard Carapaz, then you might as well not even bother getting in the break unless you're going for something different like sprint points or KOM points. Then there's good reasons to be in the front group, or maybe you want to be most combative. Those are reasons to be in the front group. But if you don't have one of those 3 reasons, there is no reason to be in the front group because you're just going to wreck your legs. Now, when we get into kilometer 0, we start seeing some attacks going up the road, and it's my man, Victor Campenaerts. If you check out his vlogs, you see he uses Ketone Aid, which is right there behind his left side shoulder there, as you see the bottle of ketone there. So you know why he's on flying form here to start stage 4. Now, you look on the back wheel there of my man, Victor Campenaerts. Well, that's Wout van Aert, the big guy. He's probably going for some sprint point competition right now because that'll come in as we start the first climb. Now, it's about 15 kilometers of flat section, and after those 2 guys get caught right away, Mads Pedersen, Lidl Trek's going up the road. He'll start the first climb proper up there in the break with about 5 companions, 6 companions with him, but they don't have much of a gap because the Peloton's pulling back their full gas. I saw Mathieu van der Poel doing some work back there because Jasper Philipsen, well, he wants to keep the points away from Mads Pedersen, so they get brought back with a few kilometers to go before the sprint line. As they get brought back, Mads Pedersen's going to have some good legs. After tacking, being in the break, pulling the break along, and now getting caught, well, he puts his whole Lidl Trek teammates on the front. They're driving it with Julian Bernard. As they come into the sprint line, Mads Pedersen lights everybody up and gets maximum points here on stage 4. Now, this is going to be it for the sprinters. They're dead and gone, except for Mathieu van der Poel. he takes off and gets into a 17-rider break. I don't know what the current road world champion is doing up here. Maybe he's a knucklehead. You guys can tell me in the comments below. But I think he's a knucklehead because I have no idea what Matthew van der Poel's doing in this front group of 17 because he can't climb. The sprint point competition's already over. And I don't think he's going for KOM jerseys. So why he's in this front group, there's nothing left except for being a knucklehead. But remember, he's the number 6 rider of my favorite, and it's Wout van Aert that's ahead of him. So that's why you see the difference. Wout would make it over these climbs, not today, but maybe in the past Tour de France, as Wout van Aert's already getting dropped out the back. Matthew van der Poel's still in the front group, but I don't know why he's there. Now you look at this group of 17 riders, 3 FDJ riders. Marc Madiot's my old director sportif from the 90s. I did 97, 98, and 99 with Marc Madiot from FDJ, and he believes that it's a Tour de France for breakaway specialists, and that's why we saw stages 1 and 2 go to the line. But like I told you, EF Education have the race leaders jersey. For sure they're going to ride. That's why when we see that 17-rider group up the road, we see EF Education in the back riding alongside UAE team members Niels Palet. As the Peloton's leaving a short lease for the group of 17 riders up there, they'll start coming up to the first of the KOM, and we see it. Stephen Williams gets maximum points. We go into the second KOM. The gap is still just at about 2.5 minutes, and Stephen Williams gets the next KOM point, up here at the top of the KOM. Behind, as they're dropping down the KOM, Visma Lease bike's on the front. Now, I don't like them riding the front because UAE team members should be on the front if they want to win the stage and if they want to put pressure on Visma Lease bike. But Jonas wants to be in a safe position dropping down the descent because there might be a crash. Personally, I'm sitting second team, if not third team, and I'm not too worried about crashes. But I know stage 4 of the Basque Country's got to be fresh in the mind there of Jonas Vingegaard's Visma Lease bike. That's why they're riding the front. Now we're coming into 42 kilometers to go. This is the last and final climb here, called the Galibier to start on stage 4 here of the Tour de France, and it's a monster climb at 23 kilometers. As they start to climb, Niels Palet's on the front for UAE team members. The group of 17 starting to blow up, and they're attacking all over the place. But as I'm texting one of my friends, I'm saying, hey, this is not the time to be attacking if you're up in the break, and you only have a 2.5 minute gap on the peloton behind with UAE team members pulling full gas now with Tim Wellens and with Soler. Once you see Tim Wellens at the front with Marc Soler on his wheel, you know for sure UAE team members are going for the stage win, if not trying to blow up the GC here on the Col de Galibier. And the gap at under 2 minutes, you just know you're not going to make it if you're part of that original group of 17. So the 4 riders you see attacking, Davide Gaudu, unless his legs from the past have come back from 2 years back, he is not going to be able to win here on stage 4 of the Tour de France, and it's just wasted energy. We'll see it's Oler Lascano up there that ends up dropping the group, but they're all going to get caught. As we go back down and look at the decimation back there from Tim Wellens and from Soler on the front, it's going fast early part of this climb up Col de Galibier, and we'll see they're not quite strung out, but they're about 2 by 2, so you know the speed's going really fast. And then it starts blowing up as Tim Wellens, after doing about 5 kilometers of pulling, and Niels Palet started this climb. Let me not forget Niels Palet, because he did a bunch of Ks at the front, the early parts here of the Col de Galibier. Tim Wellens did 5 kilometers. Now Marc Soler's on the front. With Soler pulling on the front, the speed's going fast. The peloton now is getting single file back there. We're down to about 60, 70 riders. Soler's on the front. He's going full gas. Once he pulls about 3 kilometers, he's going to pull off, and now we're coming into about 8 kilometers to go as we see the next rider, Sivakov's, coming up. Now, if I back the film up, I want to show you some important details when it was Tim Wellens and when we saw Soler on the front. There's only 2 UAE Team Emirates riders on the front, and then all the teams behind them, AG2R, Ineos, Bora, Soudal, Quickstep. You got to look 7 teams back there to see UAE Team Emirates, Tadej Pogačar, and all his real climbers there. This is the wrong place to be. Tim Wellens and Soler on the front. They should be up there with their teammates. If I'm in the riders meeting the night before and I'm prepping my riders, especially the night before and especially the morning of this stage, I'm saying, hey, when you're going up this climb, there's a ton of wind. The wind's going to come from every direction. Sometimes it'll be a headwind, sometimes it's coming from the right side, sometimes from the left, sometimes it's a tailwind. So you always want to be up on your riders, and I'll give you some more examples later as we get into the stage. Well, as I told you, Sivakov's starting to get on the front now. We're coming into just about 7.3, 7.5 kilometers to go. This is when we start seeing the first GC favorite drop off the back, as Simon Yates from Jayco Alulo's having a hard stage with 7.5 2.5 kilometers to go. As he's coming out the back, luckily for him, he's got Chris Hoppa with him, and he's got Chris Juhl Jensen, who was part of that group of 17 up the road. So now he's got a couple riders for company to help him out in all the strong winds that are happening on the climb. We go up front. As Sivakov's starting to blow, Almeida's taking over the front. With the speed of Almeida, we're going to start seeing the next riders having problems as Tom Pidcock's coming out the back. Tom Pidcock gave an interview during this stage where he said, well, his form's just not up to what he had hoped for. Well, if you did the mountain bike race the weekend before the Tour de France started, in between Tour of Suisse and the Tour de France, probably a good reason why you don't have any form right now. Tom Pidcock, as he's coming out the back, he's suffering big time. Now the next rider to come out the back, Richard Carapaz. While wearing the race leader's yellow jersey, Richard Carapaz from EF Education is dropping out the back, but Ben Healy still in the front group, his teammate. He's not dropping back with the race leader's yellow jersey. This is a good call if Richard Carapaz says, hey, I don't have the legs. If you're dropping at 1K, 2K to go before the summit of today's final climb here on stage 4, then Ben Healy needs to stay right away. But if Ben Healy has good legs, well, maybe they can win the stage if UAE team members are trying to bring it back for Tadej Pogačar to win. Or if Tadej Pogačar is trying to blow it up, well, Ben Healy should probably drop back for Richard Carapaz and help him out. Either way, Carapaz is on his own. We look up front there as Almeida's pulling full gas. Now things start getting really crazy between about 6 and 5 kilometers to go for UAE team members. Almeida's at the front. He's looking back down his shoulder. He's trying to figure out, where are my teammates? Well, they're all split up, Almeida. They're in nowhere land. You got Adam Yates back there with Tadej Pogačar, who's behind Visma Lease bike, and you got Ayuso way back there. Almeida's getting a little upset, and then finally we see that it's Adam Yates comes to the front. With Adam Yates pulling with Almeida, they're going full gas, and now we start seeing some guys hurting out the back as Ben Healy and Geraint Thomas are coming out the back from Team Ineos. As Geraint Thomas is coming out the back, we're going to see some next riders dropping out the back because Jorgensen's starting to fade to the back of the peloton there of GC favorites. As he's fading, the next casualty's coming. It's Enric Mas Movistar. As Movistar comes out the back, Jorgensen's going to follow shortly afterwards as Visma Lease bike's down to one rider. Guys, Pseudo Quickstep have 2 riders in this group because Landa's still on the back and Remco Evenepoel looks like he's having a good day. He's just behind Primoz Roglic, who's just behind Tadej Pogačar, who's just behind Jonas Vingegaard. That's isolated. We go further up the climb here. We start seeing 8 riders in the front group. There's a split. What's happening? As we get another camera angle, we see Egan Bernal, the Colombian, is dropping. He's opening up a gap. Carlos Rodriguez has to close the gap up to the group of 8 to make 10 there because Ciccone came along from Lidl Trek. Now we got 10 riders in the front group. Carlos Rodriguez is up there. We got a solid host of UAE team members riders as we see Adam Yates and Almeida on the front. Now we get into just a little bit after that moment and all of a sudden Adam Yates blows. With Adam Yates blowing, that means only Almeida's on the front. We're down to about 8 riders, 9 riders at the front here of the peloton of the Tour de France on stage 4. Almeida's pulling on the front. We're coming into just over 3 kilometers to go. Almeida's had it. He's furious. He sits up. He starts looking back. Where's Ayuso? We try to find Ayuso. He's about 6th rider back there, and Almeida's on the front. Tadej Pogačar is getting on the radio too. This is looking ugly right now for UAE team members with only Almeida on the front. Adam Yates, their GC guy here that's supposed to be the super domestique for Tadej Pogačar. He's blown. Ayuso's at the back, and then finally Ayuso comes back to the front. Now, was Ayuso being selfish, or is he trying to go 3rd on the general classification? If I take you back to some of his interviews, he said he'd like to go 3rd on the general classification like Adam Yates did last year, and maybe he'll get a shot at winning the stage. Well, this isn't the day to do it, Ayuso. That's why finally we see him at the front. Then we see Almeida and Ayuso trading off all the way up the climb. As they're trading off, the next casualty, Primoz Roglic, starts opening up a gap on Remco Evenepoel. Remco Evenepoel closes up the gap. Looks pretty comfortable to me while I'm sitting on the Chesterfield. Primoz Roglic is starting to drift. He's drifting all the way to the back of the group as he's holding on for dear life. Up front, Almeida and Ayuso are rotating through, doing about 200 to 400 meters each as each one keeps rotating after the other. Tadej Pogačar sitting behind Jonas Vingegaard. This is a bad position to be. If we look at some of the crosswind pictures where you see the winds coming from right to left and left to right, Tadej Pogačar's always in a bad position because when Almeida and Ayuso are on the front, he needs to be the 3rd rider. I know you guys are going to say he wants to see Jonas Vingegaard. You don't want to see Jonas Vingegaard. You want to see Jonas Vingegaard behind your wheel in the wind. When there's a crosswind, your teammates can control it. So you would have Almeida, you'd have Ayuso, and then you'd have Tadej Pogačar all getting a draft. If the wind's coming from left to right, if it's coming from right to left, you'd go the other direction with Almeida, Ayuso, and Tadej Pogačar. Then it'd be single file, and Jonas would be getting a crosswind. Tadej Pogačar would be sitting beautifully. Instead, he's in the wrong position behind Jonas Vingegaard, as his two leaders are doing a magnificent job finally working together here on the Col de Galibier. They're coming up to about 850 meters to go. Tadej Pogačar throws in a vicious attack going up the right side. Jonas Vingegaard goes up the left. They meet in the middle, and Tadej Pogačar's in the front. Remco Evenepoel's back there with a little bit of gap on the two riders in front, but he's got a gap on everyone else. As we look back there, Carlos Rodriguez is trying to close the gap. Remco Evenepoel's starting to lose the wheel of the two riders in front. They're coming into the next turn. Tadej Pogačar goes full gas, comes out of it sprinting like crazy. Now he gaps Jonas Vingegaard. As he's gapping him with about 700 meters to go, he goes into the next right, sits up, looks back, sees he's got a gap, but Jonas Vingegaard's holding him there about 8 seconds. They're coming up to the summit. Tadej Pogačar's throwing everything he can, goes over the top of the summit. Looks like he's still got some power as he's soloing here on stage 4, but Jonas Vingegaard's only 8 seconds behind him. Look a little bit further back, going over the top of the KOM there. That's going to be Remco Evenepoel. Look further back from them, where I told you Primoz Roglic was off there by himself. He's found his way back up to the back of the group there with Carlos Rodriguez going over the top of the KOM. We got Ayuso in that group. Mikel Landa's in that group. Remco Evenepoel's up the road, but these 4 or 5 riders now got a shot at getting back on if they can work together. But Ayuso's not going to pull. We go back up to the front, coming down the descent proper. He's going, Who's he? Well, Tadej Pogačar's he. He's flying through the rights and the lefts, going full gas. The road's got some wet as the snow is starting to melt. It's making the course incredibly dangerous. Jonas Vingegaard, as I show you, going over the top of the KOM one more time, his head drops not once but twice. So I ask myself when I'm sitting on the Chesterfield, what is the best plan if I'm Jonas Vingegaard from Visma Lease Bike? At this moment, you got to know, if you drop back to Remco Evenepoel, you know he's going to help pull. If you drop back to Carlos Rodriguez, you know Carlos Rodriguez is going to help pull, and you know Primoz Roglic will too. But if you have amazing legs, if you have 2023 Tour de France legs, you might be able to do damage control and take time on all those guys. Hold Tadej Pogačar, or even bring him back on this descent. But the flying Slovenian Tadej Pogačar, he looks magnificent. The gap spreading out to about 15 seconds on Jonas Vingegaard. Behind, Remco Evenepoel's having all kinds of problems. He'll get wrapped up from Carlos Rodriguez, from Ayuso, and from Primoz Roglic with about 14 kilometers to go. Now they keep going down the descent. But look at Remco Evenepoel. He's losing the gap from Carlos Rodriguez. He's going so fast. They're holding time on Jonas Vingegaard, but he's still got about 10-15 seconds on those 4 riders back there. But the Slovenian Tadej Pogačar, he's starting to extend the time up to 15-20 seconds on Jonas Vingegaard as he's dropping down the Col de Galibier right now. It looks like for sure he's going to win today's stage. It's just a matter of how much time he'll take on the others. As we come into about 5 kilometers to go, Jonas Vingegaard looks back over his shoulder. He sees the 4 chasers coming behind as Remco Evenepoel somewhere back there, but not quite locked onto that wheel. Jonas Vingegaard's going full gas still. He's still not sitting up. At this moment, he needs to sit up, but he doesn't. He still keeps pulling until he's caught with 4 kilometers to go. Now we'll see Remco Evenepoel bridge back up on this front group as the camera goes up to Tadej Pogačar. He's reached the town here as he's dropping full gas with the islands all over the place. He's got a couple lefts and right turns to go through. Now he's coming under 1K to go. As he comes into 500 meters to go, he starts going through the fencing. Then as he's coming up to the line, sprinting full gas into the line. He crosses the line, then celebrates so he gets maximum time on the chasers behind. He wins today's stage and will put himself in the race leader's jersey. Now what's happening behind? Well, Jonas Vingegaard starting to suffer as we see Remco Evenepoel on the front coming in the final corners. He punches it out of the corner. Primoz Roglic was sitting second. Ayuso was third. Then Ayuso passes Primoz Roglic as Remco Evenepoel gets second on the stage. Ayuso gets third. Primoz Roglic gets fourth as Jonas Vingegaard opens up a gap and loses 2 seconds on those guys. So you know his legs are blowing. Carlos Rodriguez is on his wheel. Now when I dissect today's race, what really happened in the stage? Well, we know Richard Carapaz lost the race leader's jersey. He'll come in 4 minutes down. But when we start looking at the favorites, UAE team members, I don't want you guys to think they were perfect. They weren't perfect. The legs on Tadej Pogačar were perfect. Their tactics were a nightmare on today's race. And afterwards, I'm pretty certain that there's going to be some discussion in the team because Ayuso looked like he was holding something back and not up at the front right away with Adam Yates and with Almeida pulling on the front. When I dissect it even further, if you want to go solo on today's stage and your name is Tadej Pogačar, you race for UAE team members, you come into the Col de Galibier. Once you get near the summit, you start having Ayuso pull full gas, Almeida pulls full gas, Adam Yates pulls full gas. All three of those guys pull till they blow. The next rider blows, the next rider blows, and hopefully Jonas has already blown, or he's so far at the end of his rope that he's going to blow with one short acceleration from Tadej Pogačar. And if it was me, I'd tell Tadej Pogačar to go at 2 or 3 kilometers to go, so that once my team had decimated everyone, those 10 favorites, even Giacone was there, Landa was still there, Carlos Rodriguez was there, I get those guys blown up, stretched out, and with the kind of wind we saw in today's race, if Tadej Pogačar goes and gets a gap on Jonas Vingegaard, if his team does it correctly, he gets it immediately, he gets the gap, and then they start playing games back there, because they won't play games over the Col de Galibier coming down the descent, because Primož Roglič, Remco Evenepoel, and Jonas Vingegaard, they want to win the Tour de France. They're not racing for second like we've seen in other races. They want to win, so they're going to work 100%. But going up the Col de Galibier when you're still going on up the summit, Roglič can't work. He's on the limit. If he doesn't work, that means Jonas is going to be worried about him, so he's going to go slower. That means Remco Evenepoel is going to be worried, so he's going to go slower. Or better yet, they're all blown up and they can't help each other anyways. Tadej Pogačar gets 2-3 kilometers while going up the Col de Galibier and solos it and puts a minute and a half into everyone. Instead, when we look at the end of today's stage, Tadej Pogačar got time bonuses at the top of the Col de Galibier. He won the stage for time bonus, and he ends up with a 35-second gap at the end of today's race. But when you look at the general classification, Jonas Vingegaard's only 50 seconds back from Tadej Pogačar, sitting third here on the general classification. That means if Jonas Vingegaard continues to keep getting better here at the Tour de France, and if Tadej Pogačar has a bad day, if he has a bad day, you know I'm not stretching the truth. He has a lot of one bad days in Grand Tours, as I can take you back through every one of his Grand Tours and show you. But if he has a bad day like he did last year on stage 17, well, all of a sudden 50 seconds isn't that much if Jonas Vingegaard's gotten better, if Primož Roglič has gotten better. If we look at the interview from Remco Evenepoel, he said he's not 100% yet, so if he gets better, he can be solid through the Tour de France too, and all of a sudden that one bad day that Tadej Pogačar has decimates his 50-second lead on Jonas Vingegaard and second place of Remco Evenepoel, and he loses the Tour de France. So today's race from UAE Team Emirates was anything but flawless. The only thing that was flawless was Tadej Pogačar's legs and his fitness here in stage 4 of the Tour de France. Other than that, UAE Team Emirates need a ton of help. Now, Niels Palet doesn't need any help. He was remarkable. Tim Wellens did his job. When we start looking at Soler, the Solerism, he did his job 100%. Even Almeida was up there complaining about Ayuso not being there. It's Tadej Pogačar's job to stay with his teammate on his teammate's wheel. That mistake too cost them time. If they put Jonas into the crosswind and he was hurting a little bit more, Jonas would have blew even sooner, and he had no teammates because they rode Matteo Jorgensen on stage 1, and then he blew here with 5 kilometers to go up Col de Galibier. So if you'd had those guys all in the wind, Jorgensen blows sooner, and the rest of the GC favorites blow sooner. Tadej Pogačar gains an extra minute here on stage 4. So I didn't like the tactics at all, but I love the racing, because you know when there's a bunch of knuckleheads out there, well, it's the butterfly effect time. So make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.